I was barefoot, holding my heels in one hand and my phone in the other, mascara streaking somewhere near my chin and my chest still heaving from the fight. The club lights blinked behind me like a cruel joke. Like they were mocking the girl who had just shouted "screw you" at her boyfriend in front of 20 people and then stormed out without a coat, a plan, or the dignity to look like she hadn't been crying for the last 15 minutes. I stumbled to the curb and waved a shaky hand at the first pair of headlights that approached. The car slowed. Black sedan. Unmarked. Probably a taxi. Hopefully not a creep. I pulled open the door without asking and dropped into the back seat. "Where to?" the driver asked, his voice calm. "Low." "Older." "I don't care," I said. "Just drive." He didn't move. Didn't sigh. Didn't argue. I met his eyes in the rearview mirror. They were quiet. Not blank, just waiting. And kind. Too kind. "Are you sure?" he said. "I just need to get away from here." "Far. Doesn't matter where." He nodded, shifted the car into gear. And we moved. Before I continue this, hit that subscribe button. I post one real story every single day. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'm always curious who my stories are reaching. For the first few minutes, the silence wrapped around me like a second skin. I stared out the window, trying to calm the war in my chest. I could still hear Tyler's voice in my head, echoing with disgust. "You're impossible. You twist everything into a crisis just to feel something." Maybe he was right. Maybe I was the storm. Maybe I liked breaking things just to see if someone would try to fix me. I rubbed my temples and leaned my head back against the seat. "You okay?" the driver asked quietly. "No," I snapped. Then instantly regretted it. "Sorry. I don't really do this. Crying in strangers' cars, I mean." He didn't look back. Just kept driving, one hand on the wheel, the other resting gently near the radio, which stayed off. "No need to apologize," he said. "You're not the first." His voice was warm, unhurried, like he had nowhere else to be. I exhaled. "Rough night," I muttered. "Want to talk about it?" I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You don't want to hear that story." I wouldn't have asked if I didn't. That caught me off guard. I stared at his reflection again. His hair was flecked with gray, his jawline stubbled, his eyes steady. Not tired, exactly. Just used to being the quietest person in the room. "I was supposed to meet him at the bar at 10, I said. "He shows up at 10:30 with lipstick on his collar, and I'm the crazy one for asking questions." He didn't react. Not a flinch. So I raised my voice. He said I was embarrassing him. I threw a drink. Cliché, I know. Still, he said nothing. Then I walked out because if I'd stayed, I would have begged him to take me back. And I've done that enough times already. The words just spilled out of me. I didn't plan to say them. I hadn't even meant to open my mouth. "You don't know me," I said, "but I'm not usually like this." "That's good," he replied. I frowned. Good. Means there's still a version of you believe in. I blinked. That wasn't what I expected. "What's your name?" I asked. "David." I swallowed. "I'm Emily." "Nice to meet you, Emily. Sorry you had to meet me like this." He smiled, just a trace of it in the mirror. "There's no wrong way to be human," he said. I went quiet again. We drove for what felt like forever, through empty streets lined with sleeping houses and convenience stores glowing in the dark like little lighthouses for the lost. "I'm not going home yet," I said suddenly. "I can't stand the silence." "I can keep driving," he said. "As long as you need." My throat tightened. "You do this a lot?" I asked. "Night driving. Only when I don't want to be alone." I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, it hit me that I wasn't the only one in the car with ghosts. "You've lost someone," I said softly. His hands tightened slightly on the wheel. "Yes." "I'm sorry." "Me too." We didn't speak for several long seconds. Then I said, I used to believe people saw me. I mean, really saw me. And now? Now, I think most people just see the version of me that fits whatever they need. Cute. Wild. Scary. Heartbreak girl. David didn't rush to answer. Then he said, "You ever think maybe that's why you yell, so someone finally listens?" I felt something crumble behind my ribs. "I'm so tired of being loud," I whispered. "You don't have to be right now." Eventually, we pulled into a quiet overlook near the edge of the city. The skyline shimmered below. Everything was still. He put the car in park and didn't say anything. We just sat there. I leaned back, closed my eyes. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I had to hold everything up alone. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I just let the silence be enough. After a while, I said, "I think I should go home now." He nodded, shifted back into drive. He dropped me at my apartment with a quiet, "Take care." I opened the door, stepped out, and froze. "My necklace," I murmured. It was gone. The little silver locket I always wore. I must have dropped it in the car. But when I turned back, the sedan had already pulled away, taillights disappearing around the corner. I stood there on the curb, hand to my throat, breath tight in my chest. And somehow I already knew. I hadn't seen the last of him. The sun was too bright the next morning. One of those mornings where the world has the audacity to move forward, even when you don't feel ready to get out of bed. My head ached. Not from alcohol. I hadn't had more than one drink last night. The pain came from something heavier, regret, maybe, or the shame that always seems to crawl into my skin the moment the adrenaline fades. I sat up slowly, groaning, and let my feet hit the cold floor. My apartment was still, silent. I glanced at my phone for missed texts from Tyler. None of them worth opening. And that's when I remembered it, the necklace. My fingers flew to my collarbone. Gone. The tiny silver locket, oval, old, slightly tarnished, was gone. I hadn't taken it off in 3 years. Not since my grandmother gave it to me before her stroke. Inside it, a photo of her on one side and a note she wrote me on the other, too faded to read, but memorized all the same. I leapt off the bed, yanked open my jacket from the floor. Nothing in the pockets. Nothing on the nightstand. Not in the bathroom. Not on the rug. It had to be in the car. David's car. But I had no number. No receipt. No way to call back that ride into the dark. And for some reason, that realization sat heavier in my stomach than it should have. I made tea. Tried not to panic. Paced. Checked the sidewalk outside my building twice like it would just show up. It didn't. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Buzzed again. Blocked number. My heart jolted. I picked up. "Hello." A pause. Then, "Good morning." His voice. Calm. Low. Steady. "David." I didn't say anything for a second. Just held the phone to my ear like it was something fragile. "I think you left something in my backseat," he continued. "My necklace," I said too fast. "Yes. I just realized. I was going crazy looking for it. I figured it meant something. The way you kept touching your collar last night." "I'm so sorry." "I never lose it. I swear." "I didn't call to scold you, Emily." Silence. Then he added, "I'm downstairs." "What?" "I didn't want to just drop it in the mailbox. Thought maybe you'd want it handed back properly." I moved to the window. And there he was. Black sedan. Parked across the street. Leaning on the hood like he belonged there. "Do you want to come up?" I asked before I could think. Another pause. "I can. If you're sure." "I'm sure." I opened the door before he knocked. He was holding a small paper bag and 2 cups of coffee. "Figured you might need something warm," he said simply. I stared at the bag. "You brought breakfast?" "Just a croissant," he shrugged. "And sugar for the coffee. You seemed like the kind of person who takes it sweet." "I am," I said quietly. He stepped inside. We sat at my tiny kitchen table, knees almost touching. He reached into his coat and pulled out the necklace. Untangled. Whole. I took it with both hands, my fingers shaking. "I thought I'd never see it again," I whispered. "Some things are meant to come back," he said. I looked at him. Really looked. There were lines near his eyes. His hands were calloused, but his presence was soft. "Why did you come back?" I asked. "You think I wouldn't?" "I don't know," I said. "Most people just disappear." "I used to be one of them," he said. "But I got tired of vanishing from people I might care about." That stunned me. "Might care about?" He didn't look away. "There's something about you," he said. "Not because of last night. Because of the way you talk when you don't realize anyone's listening." I swallowed. "You make it hard to breathe sometimes," I said. "Is that a good thing?" "I don't know yet." We were quiet for a moment. The kind of silence that holds weight. That stretches between two people when neither of them wants to be the first to break it. Then I said, "You don't feel like a stranger." "You don't either." "Is that dangerous?" "It might be," he said. "But so is staying numb." I leaned back. "You ever do that?" "Stay numb?" "For 3 years." "What changed?" "You got into my car." I couldn't speak. So I looked away, let my fingers curl around the necklace. And when I looked back up, he was still there. Still watching me. Not like I was a mess to fix. Just a person worth sitting with. He didn't stay long. Didn't ask for anything. When he stood to leave, he simply said, "I'll be around if you want more coffee or conversation." And then he left. No drama. No promises. Just a door that stayed open. And a locket that finally felt like it was back where it belonged, not on my chest, but in the hands of someone who saw me and stayed anyway. I wasn't supposed to see him again. We had exchanged no numbers. No promises. Just one quiet morning and the soft thud of the door closing behind him. But the thing about being seen, really seen, is that it's impossible to forget. His voice stayed with me. The calm in it. The way he said my name like it mattered. The days passed. I returned to routine. Coffee shops, emails, dinner alone. The occasional text from Tyler I didn't open. But I started sitting near windows more often. Not because I expected anything. Just in case. Then one Friday afternoon, warm, too bright, too loud, I saw him. Outside the bookstore. Black jacket. Coffee in one hand. Reading glasses pushed up into his hair. He looked different. Softer. Sunlight softened the edges of his face and made him look almost out of place. I stood there across the street, unsure if I should call out or pretend I didn't see him. Then he looked up. Right at me. Like he'd been waiting. I froze. He didn't wave. Didn't shout. He just smiled. The smallest, realest smile, and nodded once. I crossed. "You stalking me now?" I said, trying to tease but falling short. "I come here every Friday," he replied. "Always have. To read. To think. To pick up emotionally unstable women who yell at you in their passenger seats." That made him chuckle. "Only the ones who make good coffee." I glanced away, feeling something tighten in my chest. "Can I buy you lunch?" he asked. That surprised me. "No. I'm hungry," he said simply. "And I owe you a croissant that wasn't stale." We ended up at a small cafe tucked behind the market square. Wood tables. Big windows. The kind of place where silence felt like an atmosphere, not an absence. We didn't rush the conversation. He let me speak first. I opened one of Tyler's messages, I admitted. "Was it worth it?" "No," I said. "But I read it anyway. Because sometimes we want proof that people are still wrong about us." He nodded. "What did he say?" "That I'm emotionally manipulative. That I only feel comfortable when someone's trying to fix me." David took a sip of tea. "Do you believe him?" I looked down. I used to make pain a performance. Not because I liked it, but because I thought if someone saw how much I hurt, they'd finally care. And now? I don't want to perform anymore. "Good," he said quietly. "You don't have to." The food came. We picked at it between questions. He told me he used to teach ethics at a university before his wife got sick. That was the last time I felt sure of myself, he said. Back then, every answer felt like it had a framework. A rule. A moral. And now? Now, I just try to do no harm. And not lie to myself. That sounds harder. It is. But it's also the only thing that feels honest. I sipped my coffee. Why do you still drive? He didn't answer right away. I used to hate being in motion, he said. Then I realized it was the only time I wasn't stuck. I let that sink in. I get that, I said. Running, driving, walking until your feet hurt. It's the only thing that shuts off the noise sometimes. He looked at me. You carry a lot of noise, don't you? I carry a lot of people who didn't listen. And then we both went quiet again. But it wasn't heavy. It was just full, like air before a thunderstorm. When we walked back toward the street, I felt it, that weight in my steps. Like I didn't want this to end yet. Like goodbye might undo all the softness we'd built over lunch. Do you want to ride home? He asked. I walked here. I know. But walking alone feels different after something good. I hesitated. Will you drive slow? Always. We didn't talk in the car. Just music. Low. Old. The kind that makes you feel like your story has a soundtrack even if no one's listening. When we reached my building, I didn't move to get out. I sat there. So did he. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the quiet. I don't know what this is, I said softly. You don't have to, he replied. It doesn't need a name. I turned to him. But it feels like something. It is. I wanted to kiss him. I didn't. He didn't move either. Just kept looking at me like I was a chapter he was still deciding whether he was allowed to read. Then he said, You don't have to prove anything to me. That broke something in me. I'm not used to this, I whispered. To someone staying when it gets complicated. I'm not here because it's easy, he said. I'm here because I see you. My throat burned. Will you come up? I asked, afraid of the answer. Not tonight, he said. Tonight, I want you to know that I can leave and still come back. He reached for my hand briefly, just enough to say I'm still here. Then he let go. I watched him drive away. And for the first time since I met him, I didn't feel like I was being left behind. I felt like I was being trusted to believe someone would return. I wasn't expecting the knock. I was half-dressed, hair wrapped in a towel, trying to figure out if I even had the energy to cook something that didn't come from the freezer. 3 soft knocks. No urgency. No rhythm. Just steady. I froze. No one ever knocked like that unless it was trouble or a delivery. And I hadn't ordered anything. I cracked the door open, breath held in my throat. David. Still in that same jacket. A different shirt, I think, darker, maybe navy. His face was unreadable. Didn't mean to catch you off guard, he said. I should have called. You don't have my number, I murmured. He offered a small smile. Lucky guess you'd be home. I stepped aside, towel still on my head. Come in. He walked past me carefully, respectfully, eyes scanning the room like he wasn't sure if he belonged here or just wanted to remember it in detail. When I closed the door, I turned slowly. I wasn't sure I'd see you again, I said. I told you I'd come back. But people say things. I don't. I exhaled, then pulled the towel off my head and tossed it onto the chair. You hungry? I asked, moving toward the kitchen without looking at him. A little. Pizza, okay? Always. It was the quietest thing, that word. But the way he said it made something settle in me. We stood in my kitchen while I reheated leftovers. I moved automatically, pretending my hands weren't trembling just slightly. That I wasn't too aware of his presence behind me, of the sound of his breathing, of how his cologne smelled warm and clean and barely there. When I turned to hand him a plate, our fingers brushed. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. He took the plate gently, and we sat down again, just like the first time, knees close, but not touching. Halfway through eating, he said, You seem different tonight. How? Quieter. I chewed my bite a little longer than necessary, then set the plate down. I've been thinking, I admitted, a lot, about why I keep ending up in the same emotional place, no matter who I'm with. David didn't interrupt. I think I keep handing out pieces of myself like confetti, I said, to anyone who looks at me long enough. He nodded slowly. And do they hold on to those pieces? No, I whispered. They trample them. Or forget they have them. and then I have to go find more to give. I felt his gaze before I saw it. You don't have to give me anything, he said softly. You don't have to earn presents. My eyes welled. I don't know how to be with someone who doesn't need me to prove my worth. Then let this be the first time. I looked away. You make it sound simple. It isn't. But it's possible. Later, I made tea. It was a habit now, something to do when I didn't have words. David followed me to the couch. He didn't sit too close. But he didn't leave space either. He held the cup in both hands, like it gave him something to focus on. You used to teach, I said suddenly. He nodded. I still read. A lot. What kind of books? Ones where the ending doesn't fix everything, just lets the characters breathe. I smiled. That sounds like real life. He tilted his head slightly. Maybe that's why people avoid it. We fell quiet again. Then he asked, What do you want, Emily? The question wasn't demanding. It didn't come with strings. But it landed heavy in my chest. I want to stop hiding behind sarcasm, I said. I want to say what I feel without being afraid it'll scare someone away. You're allowed to say it. I turned my body toward him, legs tucked beneath me. I feel safer around you than I should, I whispered. That's not a bad thing. It feels dangerous. Like I might start hoping again. He set his cup down, then looked at me. You can hope. I'll stay. It wasn't a promise. It was a truth. I leaned forward, unsure what I was doing until I was close enough to see the lines around his eyes. He didn't move. He didn't pull me in. But he didn't pull away either. So I kissed him. Soft, brief, barely there. When I pulled back, his eyes stayed closed for a second longer than they needed to. I've wanted to do that, I said. But I was afraid. What changed? I got tired of waiting to feel ready. He reached up slowly, gently brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. You don't have to rush this, he said. I'm not going anywhere. I smiled, real and raw and shaky. I don't want to be rescued. You don't need to be. And I don't want to be someone's second chance. You're not, he said. You're the first time something feels right. That night he stayed. Not in my bed. Not with expectations. Just on the couch, reading a book, holding space, letting the night pass without pressure. And I really slept for the first time in months. Not because I was in love, but because I finally believed that someone saw me and chose to stay anyway. The next time I saw him, it wasn't planned. It was raining. The kind of rain that doesn't start with warning clouds. It just falls, sudden and cold, like the sky lost its patience. I had no umbrella. My jacket was too thin. My mood, brittle. I ducked into the cafe on Main, the one I always passed but never entered, and there he was. David. Sitting by the window, black coffee in hand, same black jacket draped over the back of his chair. He looked tired. In that familiar, quiet way that people do when they've carried themselves for too long without help. I froze. He looked up and smiled, not surprised, not startled, just a soft curve of the mouth, like I was someone he expected eventually. I almost turned around, but I didn't. I walked toward him, trying not to look as nervous as I felt. You always sit here? I asked. He nodded. On rainy days, yes. Why? Because no one hurries in the rain. People linger. And I like the quiet. I gestured toward the empty chair across from him. Anyone sitting here? Not yet, he said. So I sat. I didn't order anything, just let the warmth of the room settle around me, the sound of rain pattering against the windows, the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. Have you been? He asked. I hesitated. Better. Worse. I don't know. You don't have to name it, he said. Some things don't fit in labels. I looked at him. Really looked. You always speak in calm, I said. Only because I used to speak in fire, he replied. And it burned too many people I cared about. That shut me up. I swallowed. I keep thinking about that night, I admitted. The night I got into your car. I keep asking myself what would have happened if someone else had picked me up. He didn't flinch. you would have still gotten home. But not the same way. No, he said gently. Probably not. I looked down at my hands. They all think I'm impulsive, I said. That I run on feelings and ruin everything good. And do you believe them? Sometimes. But not when I'm with you. That silence returned, the heavy one. The one that asked what now? He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes searching mine. Why are you really here? Because I didn't want to feel alone today, I whispered. And I thought, if I saw you, maybe I wouldn't. You aren't alone, he said. I don't want to be something temporary in your life, I said suddenly. Something you remember but don't keep. He was quiet, thoughtful. Then, neither of us came looking for this. I know, but now that it's here, do you want to leave it behind? I looked at him. No. He nodded. Me neither. The door chimed as someone left. The cold air brushed against my back, and something in me settled. I reached across the table, not for drama, not for show, and touched his hand. He didn't move. He just turned his palm up and held mine in return. That simple. That quiet. Like maybe, just maybe, we weren't afraid of being seen anymore. It had been a week since the rain. Since the cafe. Since I held his hand across that table like it was the only thing keeping me tethered. And now he stood outside my building again. Not with coffee this time. No breakfast bag. No practiced smile. Just him. And a question in his eyes. Come up, I said before I lost the nerve. He followed me up the stairs, our footsteps echoing more than they should have. I opened the door to my apartment, stepped aside, let him in. He didn't ask why I called. He didn't ask what I wanted. He just waited. I shut the door behind us and turned slowly. I haven't stopped thinking about you, I said. I didn't expect you to, he replied. I haven't stopped either. He walked toward the window, looked out like he needed a minute to find the right words. I've lived a lot of quiet years, he said. Too many of them. And I used to think that was safer. That if I didn't feel much, I couldn't lose much. He turned to face me. But then you sat in the back of my car and changed everything I thought I knew about grief. I swallowed hard. How? You reminded me it doesn't only live in what we lose. It lives in what we're too afraid to reach for. I crossed my arms tightly. And now? Now I'm tired of being afraid. We stood there, in my tiny apartment, surrounded by books I hadn't finished, and dishes I hadn't washed, and air I hadn't really breathed in until now. You told me you weren't good at staying, he said. Do you still believe that? I'm good at making people stay, I whispered. I just never believed I was worth staying for. He stepped closer. Let me prove you wrong. I didn't cry. I didn't fall into his arms or make some grand confession. I just took a step forward. And he met me there. No rush. No assumptions. Just two people standing in the same silence, finally ready to listen to it. Do you want to stay here tonight? I asked. He hesitated. Not if it complicates things. It won't, I said. It already is complicated. That's the point. He nodded. Then yes, I want to stay. That night, I gave him space on the couch again. A pillow. A folded blanket. A quiet kind of comfort. But somewhere around 2 a.m., I found myself in the hallway between our rooms. I didn't know why. I didn't plan it. He was already awake, sitting on the edge of the sofa, a book closed in his lap. You can't sleep either? He asked gently. I shook my head. We met in the middle of the hallway, where the light was soft and our voices didn't need to be loud. I reached for his hand. He let me. You don't have to protect me from this, I said. I'm not trying to, he replied. I just don't want to move too fast. Then don't move, I whispered. Just be here. We didn't kiss. Not then. Instead, I sat beside him and rested my head against his shoulder. And for the first time, I let myself want something without apology. The morning after was quiet. Beautiful in its own way. We didn't talk about what came next. We didn't label it. But something between us had shifted. I made coffee. He folded the blanket. We moved around each other like people who had already been doing this for years. I'm thinking of leaving the city, he said while I rinsed a mug. I turned. What? Not far. Just someplace smaller. Somewhere I don't wake up and feel like I'm waiting for my old life to return. Would you be leaving? Alone? He looked at me. Not if you wanted to come. I laughed, soft, surprised. That's fast. It doesn't have to be. I just want you to know the door's open. Not to a perfect future, but to a real one. I leaned on the counter. I never planned to fall for a man who drives a taxi at night and quotes novels in the morning. And I never planned to fall for a woman who threw a drink at her ex and then changed the way I breathe. We both smiled. The kind of smile that hurts because it's too full. Then he said, "What would it take for you to say yes?" I thought about it. "Not much," I replied. "Just don't vanish." "I won't," he said. "Not unless you ask me to." I walked to him, took his hand again. "Then maybe we don't need to decide right now," I said. "Maybe we just keep showing up." And we did. Every day after that was ordinary. Wonderfully, maddeningly ordinary. Groceries, walks, music playing while we cleaned, books traded back and forth, arguments over how much garlic was too much garlic, and always, always that steady presence, that man who stayed. One evening, weeks later, I found a note tucked inside my locket. I hadn't noticed it before. I opened it with shaking fingers. It wasn't from him. It was from my grandmother. The faded ink barely legible. "When you meet someone who feels like quiet, stay." Before I continue, I just want to say thank you. These stories are real. They're mine. And I share one every day. If you want to hear more, subscribe. I sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of her words crashing down like a tide. David walked in a few minutes later, hair damp from the shower, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He saw my face. "You okay?" I held up the locket. I forgot this note was even inside. He came closer, sat beside me, waited. I passed him the note. He read it, then looked at me. "I don't know what happens next," I said. "Neither do I," he replied. "But I know I want to face it with you." I leaned into him. "Then stay. Tonight. Tomorrow. As long as it feels right." His hand closed around mine. And we stayed. Not because we were perfect. Not because it was easy. But because sometimes, when the world quiets just enough, you hear someone breathing next to you, and it sounds like home. That was him. That is us. And maybe that's what love really is. Not loud. Not obvious. Just steady. Just present. Just finally real.